And then I remember him saying, well, why don't you become a police officer? And I said this, well, maybe the one in a million chance I stop somebody, that'd be the one that shoot me. But I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. You're going to find hard to believe that it actually happened. But there it was. I was faced with this. The chief of police sitting next to me in his car. And now I'm seeing this gigantic flag drape over top of this house. Now, all of a sudden, I had to check myself. I checked my gun on my hip, and I checked my gun under my arm. Hi, this is Robert Wilkins, a.k.a. BasketballTall. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here with me today. I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to deviate from sports for a moment because there's something that's going on in this country and around the world that's affecting all of us. And so many people are speaking out about it because that's what makes us Americans. We've always used to do the right thing. It was always about the law, the Constitution, and our God. But right now, all of that seems to be in jeopardy. I want you to look at things from a different point of view because it comes down to right and wrong. Right is right, wrong is wrong. But what am I talking about? I know I'm saying a lot of things, but I'm going to share a story with you. But I'm going to talk about it in the end because I'm going to wrap all this up. I'm going to bring this where we were and how we got to this point. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me and see what I have to say. You too might agree or disagree, but that's the beauty of being in the United States. That's the beauty of being an American. And an American has nothing to do with your complexion. It's about the Constitution. It's the law. That's what governs this country. Honesty, righteousness, obeying every city, state, and federal law, including our Constitution, which is a law. That's how we're governed. That's what keeps the peace in this country. Have you realized that yet? Now, I say all of this because I was a law enforcer. I was a cop. I went through the police academy. Let me just tell you who I am. I'm a former college basketball player. I played college basketball. I had numerous opportunities to go play other places. After that, I became a police officer, a municipal patrolman, which I rode around until I got calls and I answered the call. And I've seen death. I've had my gun pulled on people. I even had the thought of having to shoot somebody if I had to. See, because you can't wait till that time comes. You have to know that you possibly can do this, even though you've never done it before in your life, because it comes down to your safety, your protection, and the safety of others. But to pull something out on a person as far as a firearm, pointing it at them with the possibility of shooting. Now, you must be in a very tense situation for that to happen, right? Based on the nature of the call that you get and when you respond to that scene, you have to be cautious because sometimes, well, usually most times, you don't know what you're walking into until you get there. So I'm going to get personal here today, and I'm going to say some things. It's not to upset anybody because I got a lot of friends out there. I mean, personal friends of all different races, really. Because when you're in law enforcement, you're protecting society. You go in everybody's homes and you see how people live. Just because a person can wear a suit and a tie, three-piece suit every day, looking good, high position in their company or whatever, they have a lot of issues too. And when you're a cop, you get to see that. But you don't disclose that to the public because you work under confidentiality. But I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. You're going to find hard to believe that it actually happened. Let me ask you something. How does someone get you to believe that everything's hunky-dory, going good, when you have your eyes and ears to see that it's not, how can someone get you to believe that? How could someone get you to believe that if you see a crime committed, you're not seeing that? And then get you to buy in that everything that's being done is being done for your good. When common sense tells us what we can see and hear with our own eyes and ears, that it's not. What kind of power exists that can get someone to not trust their eyes and ears? Usually when I saw people behaving in such a fashion, it was from watching television, such as Supernatural with Sam and Dean, always conquering the demons, the monsters, and to save the world.
We're the guys who saved the world. We're the guys who
But in a sense, it's almost like Lucifer got released from his cage, like in watching Supernatural, and put a spell on people. Really. It's almost like that. That's how a lot of people sees it. That's why you have people talking about, being brainwashed, being in a cult and all of that. That's because that's what they see. Now, me being former law enforcement, from dealing with adults and kids, you get to see the real picture of what's going on in a lot of people's lives. Does jealousy still exist today? Oh, yeah. It's one of those sin because, we live in a world of sin. And jealousy is one of those that existed from way back. Remember Cain and Abel? It's alive and well today. But it's amazing how people can use the pigmentation of our skin to drive a wedge between us. It's amazing how we are so tribal, our team compared to their team. And that can be from Little League, Pee Wee sports, all the way up to Congress, the presidency. And we stick with our team, whether they're right or wrong. Do we? Because even on the team, we may see a coach cuss and fuss and throw a ball or kick or whatever, but still there was a boundary that he knew not to cross. But when you involved in the criminal justice system, people normally cross those boundaries. If they didn't, there would be no need for the police. People do different things for different reasons. A lot of different diverse groups and organizations, and they have different motives for doing things. And by the way, you do have that criminal enterprise element out there as well, live and kicking. But I made a video not long ago, and the thing is, what if? And it was about the American gangster. You ought to watch that. It's pretty good. It's not a long video at all. And it's me narrating it. The creator, producer, all of that. The American Gangster. Check my channel and you'll see, find that video there. Where what if a mafia leader, or syndicate, crime boss was to somehow become the top leader of the land. Imagine that. And if he ran that just like a crime organization, think about that. The world would be in a whole lot of hurt. I think your common sense will tell you that. If not, it should. Because this country was always found on the Lone Ranger. The good guys always win, overshadow the bad guys. But sometimes bad guys win, don't they? But it seems because they're in such a bad environment of always scheming and planning and killing, that it always seems to catch up with them. And in the end, ultimately, righteous wins. I'm going to take you on this journey. And like I said earlier, at the end, I'm going to really divulge something to you that's going to blow you away. Because none of you have never done this or experienced this. In the 1970s, integration nationwide took hold. You had minorities going to white schools, blacks going to white schools. And the thing about it is, sports led the way. I graduated in 1976, and just think, a decade prior to that in the 60s, what rights we didn't have. We didn't have the rights. And when the 1970s came about, we exploded out of the gate. We were that guinea pig. We were that experiment that they all talked about, the government, that the integration took hold within the nation. And then we learned from one another. And what I discovered, we all have the same issues. We all have the same problems. And our behaviors are all the same because we're human. We may talk different. We may say things or look at things a little different, but human behavior, if you're a human being, it's all the same. It is. Good, bad, right, wrong, whether you're schizophrenic, whether you got cancer or diabetes. We're all the same as humans. But one of the great things about living in this country, we were always inspired that we can live the American dream. Everybody. There's plenty of opportunity in this land for everybody, or let's say it was. But we see things about to interfere with that now. Could the dream that we once strived for and talked about, if you do this, that, you can achieve this and that, which was true. There are actual success principles that help people, teaches you how to get ahead. That's all I've ever done when I was doing my motivational speaking, working for the government and supervising 5 counties at the same time, working with judges and district attorneys and police officers, sheriffs, everybody, schools, everybody. And we all have that same desire to achieve, and we can. In this country, there was plenty for everybody, but let's be real, there are elements that are jealous about that too. So then after college, graduating from college, get a job as a police officer. And boy, that was the beginning of my career. A job that I did not want. Here I am watching T.J. Hooker, William Shatner, who played Star Trek, and he was playing this cop, show called T.J. Hooker. And this was in the 1980s. And I thought, hey, I can become a dispatcher, get me a dispatcher job behind the scenes, because I was one of those early guys that could type. Back during my time, guys didn't type. That was a girl's thing, But I took typing class for the wrong reason, because my cousin came and said, Will, let's take typing, man. That's where all the pretty girls at. He made me think about it. And I thought, you're right. And I took typing for the wrong reasons. And, typing 1 and 2. And then when the computers came out, the keyboard was the same. So I was ahead of my time. But because I acquired that skill, that enabled me to become a dispatcher. Because, when you get a call, you got to type it in and all that stuff. And watching T.J. Hooker, that inspired me to become a dispatcher so I can get me a coaching and teaching job. Not knowing I was about to walk into my destiny. And when I visited with the chief of police, his name was Bill Cully, and he started talking to me about becoming a policeman. He wanted me to become a cop. I didn't want to be no cop. I made a story about when I was graduated out of high school. I was at Sam Houston State, which I was going. I had signed a letter of intent to go to school there, college there, until my roommate stole something and got in trouble. And then they had me under investigation, came in the room with a warrant and had me all up against the wall and everything and saying some choice words to me. This was in the summer of 1976. And then I decided I don't want to go to school here, because I felt I had become on the police radar. Plus, growing up in the community, in public housing, we saw police often. But it was always a negative. Because in Louisiana, there's a very large black population in the state. Then I come to Oklahoma, there's only about 7, almost 8% black population in the whole state. And most of them are in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So you can see there was a lot of people in the state had never been around a guy like me. And if you only knew how many times I've been told that, I've never seen a black guy personally. I've never even talked to a black guy. I've never been around a black person. Imagine that. And you come from an environment in Louisiana, everywhere you went, there were black people. You know, there was a difference in culture. But I took the job as a police officer after I turned it down the first time. And then because of bills, newly married, a little new child and all of that, and I knew I needed to work. So I popped back in at the police department again, unannounced this time. Then the chief of police and then the assistant chief, who we called Major Willingham, they ganged up on me, trying their best to convince me to take this job I didn't want. And then I remember him saying, well, why don't you become a police officer? And I said this, well, maybe the 1 in a million chance I stop somebody, that'd be the one that shoot me. And I was serious with them, you know. And then they started telling me about store clerks getting killed compared to policemen, firemen getting killed compared to policemen. You know, we want you talking over, you know. So I talked over to everybody. Nobody else could do it but encouraging me to do it. So because of the pressures of life, you know, you get married and then you have a baby and, you know, and you're unemployed because I quit the insurance industry. That's another story. And then become a policeman. And when I became a cop, I'm going to tell you, that was a trip. I knew what it's like to run from the police. I know what it's like to be up on the wall, patting me down and all of that stuff. And here I am, a cop with a uniform, utility belt with a gun and handcuffs, baton, all of that stuff on it, extra bullets, a hat. I had a whistle, you know, the chain coming. Then I had the whistle that, you know, was in my pocket, shirt pocket. I was a police officer. And I remember the first day I walked out the police department, it was a trip. It was like, whoop. All eyes were on me. I heard people like saying, who was that tall black cop? You know. But I did my job and I ended up taking a position later on at the courthouse. You know, those type of courthouses got the dome on top, you know. My office was right up under that. I was the district court on a state level, district court juvenile officer, had my own office. You know, the judges really didn't bother me much. You know, I was also commissioned deputy sheriff in Carter County. And the judges didn't bother me that much. You know, do a home study here, do a home study there for adoption, something like that. But the bulk of my business was actually investigating crimes. You know, anytime, you know, all throughout the county of Carter County, and that's where mainly I worked at, even though my jurisdiction covered the other 4 counties. There's 5 counties in all, the 20th Judicial District. But I only did beyond Carter County was when the judges want me to do something in part of the district. And that was it. But usually, I would say probably about 95% of my time was law enforcement. I got out of uniform, dressed up in a suit and tie every day like a detective, well armed. And here's what I'm about to get and how I'm going to equate that with today's time. I get a call from the chief of police of a little town in Carter County. I never really had no problems in this region, really. You know, people are trying to show like, don't you know who I am? No, sir, but here's your citation. You know, I mean, you know, I've had people call me, boy, this and that, you know, don't, you know, but people we encounter, we learn something from everybody we're around, even may be microscopic, you know, but the people we're around long enough help shapes our personality as well. When I get a call from this chief of police, and My in-laws, when I decided to move to this area, it's an area where my wife is from. And my in-laws educated me. My mother-in-law was educating me about towns in the county to avoid. I'm not going to call these towns out. But they told me that, but that had no bearing on me, I'm going to be honest with you. Because if I get a call to assist someone, I always assist. I learned that from the police department. You're always calling your backup, to assist and so forth. And even though I did not work for any of the other police departments or sheriff departments, I would assist them if they called on me. So I get a call from this chief of police one day. He and we graduated from the same police academy. I just tell you, we called him Buster. Okay. And, but he was the chief of police of one of these small towns. And when he called me and I said, hey, Chief, hey, Buster, how you doing? Because, we got to know each other from the police academy. And I asked, what, you got a situation with some kids? He told me that he did. And he needed my assistance. So I decided to go over to this small town. While there, I'm with the chief and we jump in his unit and we ride outside of the city limits, actually. Outside of the city limits, like in the country. And as we came around this curve, it was a real shock and surprise. What my in-laws was telling me about these little towns, I was now facing it. What am I talking about? I know you said, hurry up, get to it. But telling a true story, please be patient, because it may be of value to you and your family or someone you know and love. When we came from around that curve and the trees, all of a sudden the clearance, there it was exposed. It was such a thing that was staring me in the face. And now I'm faced with a situation, this could be deadly. I know you're probably wondering, what am I talking about? I made a video on this particular event, but it was draped over the top of the house. It was gigantic, bigger than like what you ever seen, these gigantic flags flying at a bank. That's right. It was that Confederate flag. And there were no people in that town or region that looked like me. Now, what would you do? You've been educated about these sundown towns. And we know the history about that. We know the history about slavery. We know the history about Jim Crow. And we know the battles that's still being waged in some areas, because every section of the country is not the same. We know that from our travels, don't we? But there it was. I was faced with this. The chief of police sitting next to me in his car. And now I'm seeing this gigantic flag drape over top of this house. Now, all of a sudden, I had to check myself. I checked my gun on my hip, and I checked my gun under my arm. And I had made the decision at that point, it can be a life and death situation. And I made a point at that time. My mind was made up. No ifs and buts about it. If there had to be a shooting, hey, been no problem. Because I was trained to protect not just myself, but to protect the public. And anything that I would have done, it would have been within the frameworks of the law. Now I'm faced with this dilemma. And the thing about it is, I don't work for this city. I don't work for that chief of police. He can't dictate or tell me to do anything. I work for the court. And I was just out there on a courtesy at his request. And now I'm faced with a situation wondering, is this history about to be made here? Because we know a lot of the old history, but this would have definitely been new history. Now I'm weighing it out whether I'm going to tell Chief, turn the car around, I'm not going in, or do I go forward? Not knowing what the Chief's true intentions are. Not knowing, could this be a setup to get this guy under control? But I tried to be a good police officer. I tried to treat everybody the way I wanted to be treated. And I did do that. But now I'm faced with a situation that, based on history, could turn out to be deadly. And rest assured, I was ready. Now we stop outside of this house and we get out, and I believe there was a gentleman, a guy that came out of the house to meet us. And then I just kept it businesslike. Now I go inside the house, check on the kids, and everything checks out fine. And while I was in that home, that Confederate flag home, who was drawn there by the chief of police, not knowing what his true intentions were at the time, who was a guy I thought we developed a good rapport when we was at the police academy. And everybody gave me respect. Why was that? Why I'm in such a home and we know who represents those flags? Especially one gigantic like that where you can be in an airplane and look down and see it. Must be headquarters. So when I walked out of that home, they just called me Officer Wilkins, and everything was respectful. Because see, when you're in this, I knew the situation I was in. And I knew I was faced with a moment, and there was no time to show cowardice. No time to show cowardice. You know, I've often thought about that. He knows the history. Why lure me out there to that particular home? Think about that. A home with such a history that has so many lynchings, but we're in a different day and age. And I can assure you, things are not like the way they used to be and will never go back. I'm an American just like everybody else is American. I obey the law, pay my taxes, and try to help my fellow man, worship and serve my God. Think about that. So now I'm in modern day 21st century. New president is back in office. And right now our country is going to hell. Remember when it was peaceful? Remember when we had the respect of the world? Remember when we were the most wealthiest country the world has ever known, ever. And then we'll listen to what someone says, how terrible this country has been doing. When you and I know it's been doing great, better than ever. We're the richest, the wealthiest. We was the most respected around the world, and like overnight, it's all gone. And you, if you can't see trouble coming, even more so, it's going to get worse. I can tell you this right now. I see it coming. A lot of people see it coming. But there are some people who can't see it. They really can't. It's like they're blind. It's just like Sam and Dean watching Supernatural when you had Lucifer telling, the people one thing, and then the people are so spellbound, they believe it. Watch Supernatural. That's what I'm talking about. And while you're watching it, watch 24, because it's like in sync what's going on today. It's a TV show that used to come on. I think it's been off the air now, maybe 10 years, with Kiefer Sutherland. And his character was called Jack Bowers played the show called 24. Watch it. You'll see the parallels as what's going on in our country today and our government. Really. But having a career in the criminal justice system, take another job as a juvenile justice specialist with the state. Did that 25 years. And then the last 9 of those years, I supervised 5 counties, all at the same time with that agency. In my region, I was the first in that capacity. Imagine 5 counties. You know, I pop from one county because we have an agency in every county, 77 counties in the state. Imagine I leave from one county, I'll go over there, visit with the district attorney or assistant DA, the judge, and judges. I'll go to the other county, visit with the chief of police or the sheriff, besides the judges and the DAs and ADAs. At all 5 counties. And here, check this out. In most of those counties, there weren't people really like me. But there were good people everywhere. And I found a lot of good people trying to do the right thing. Even in their ruling on the bench and so forth, even when filing charges from the district attorney's office, always try to do the right thing. But like in everything, we have that element out there that's not so good, that will break the law, that will threaten you, that will bully you, that will try to take everything they can from you and make you bow. I'm familiar with that. When you're in the criminal justice system, you see things other people don't get to see, because that's why you call the law, to protect you. But right now we see some things going on in our country that has us all concerned. The stock market is, not steady. It's up and down. And think about this. Our leader can control the stock market unless someone gets him in check. Just like recently, the other day, giving everybody the heads up about, the market getting ready to go up, and putting out a stock symbol, which is his actual initials. I'm an ex-cop. Something wrong with that. That can easily be put in the category of corruption. And we just sit by and let it happen. So let me wrap all this up. I said a lot to say this. I saw, and so have many of you, the progression of this country. We go from no rights to having rights, to being put in positions of power and authority. And then you have someone come along and say how bad and poorly we're doing. And the thing what caught a lot of us, and this what got us all: secure the border, number one. Then, of course, the other issues, social issues. We can deal with social issues, but there are a way that we can get things done without violating people's rights. Because that's what it's always been about for me. Obeying the law. You obey God, you obey the law. Do you want to be like Russia? Really? Seriously? I don't want to be like Russia. We are the United States, baby. We are a unique country. We're governed by laws, the Constitution. We don't want to be like Russia. We don't want to be a totalitarian dictatorship style country. You want a king? I don't. So what do we do about it, Congress? We're going to sit back and let things happen before we know it? Country's gone. You're so concerned about your positions of getting reelected? Trust me when I say this. You don't deserve to be reelected. And those people in your district, no matter how much you hide, you're going to feel it, and you should. Because the government is about the people. The government is to protect us. The government is to help us, not hurt us, not destroy us, not penalize us, not put us in fright, wondering what freedom will be taken next. Because we got a lot of punks and cowards that are afraid to do what they know is right. I've seen the bad. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And all I'm seeing right now is the bad and ugly. But there's still goodness out there. Because here's one thing that's for certain. Love heals. Love has power. Love can prevent wars. But if we don't get control of it now, folks, we're going to feel the financial pain. And not just that, here's what else is going to happen. We're going to find ourselves possibly in a war. Think about that. Seems like everything that our president said about other people, he was always talking about himself. He's saying that, I remember he talked about the other candidates he was running against was going to get us in World War III, and I watched all the rallies, his too, and he was the only one that ever talked about that. I've got people I consider good friends will look me dead in the eye and believe everything he says to be true. It reminds me of the scripture where it talks about they were given over to a depraved, reprobate mind. They can't see it. I don't want a dictator. I don't want a king. I want our reputation to be restored around the world. I want America to stand for goodness. That light, that beacon up on the hill, what people just admire to be. Where every person can utilize those success principles and follow those principles and achieve their dreams and goals in life. I want a country where I feel protected. I want a country where I feel I can get ahead. I want a country where I know that I'm leaving something behind for my kids and grandkids and generations to come, and not to tear it all up, to try to make it into something new. It was working. We don't need to change it. It's been working for 250 years, and now here we are. We want to change it because one person wants it. Then there's another one that wants it. Then there's secret meetings behind closed doors. And here's a common denominator, folks. You may not want to hear this, but I'm going to be real with you. Race is in the center of it all. Race is in the center of it all. And we all have to live together. Robert Wilkins, aka BasketballTall. Stick with me. Let's love one another. Let's put into practice what God calls us to do. And I'll see you next time.